Looking for a task and life management system that could allow you to free your mind from mental clutter, like constantly thinking about disorganized to-dos and upcoming tasks? Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity, written by David Allen, is a groundbreaking productivity system which I highly recommend you to read. In this video, I wanted to share a template tour and tutorial of the ultimate Getting Things Done Notion template, which is inspired by this book. I think that Notion can be a great tool for implementing this system, and I would highly recommend this for people who struggle with keeping an effective and meaningful personal task, calendar, and knowledge management system. If you find this video helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Let's first go over what the Getting Things Done method entails by taking a look at a simplified diagram that I created. So if you go to the Start Here button, there's a link to the book in case you're interested in reading about this, and I highly recommend reading this before using the template. Then there's going to be a full tutorial below here, which is basically this video that I'm recording now. Here, I wanted to go over the simplified reference diagrams that I created so that it's a little bit easier to understand exactly what is the Getting Things Done method. I'm not a GTD method coach, but this is just my interpretation of how you can structure your to-dos inbox and how you can organize everything into different reference files, as well as how to decide what to do with each of the items you put into an inbox. Now let's go over a brief overview of this template itself. So on the right hand side, you'll notice an inbox where you can add all of the items that might come up in your head, and you can do this throughout the day whenever you think that you might want to add things to your inbox. Then we have calendars. So if you have external calendars, which I'll also explain a bit later, you can link and add them here as well in case you want to have a place to check them. The main calendar here are fixed date action tasks. So those are action tasks that have a fixed date that you have to do it on a certain day, and sometimes even on a certain time, so you can see them all on your front page. Then on the left-hand side, you'll notice that I put a quote from David Allen. It's a very inspirational quote for this method. And you can also add your own quotes here, your own motivational, even images here. So this is kind of a free space to keep you motivated. Next, there's a navigation bar so that no matter where you are in this template, you can always return home as well as access different parts of the template. Under here, we have the weekly review so that you can always see what weekly review you need to accomplish next. Then we have the higher level reviews. So these are meant to be reviewed on different time frames depending on when you want to review them. They show all of the active ones here, and when you do create a new higher level review, you can archive the one that is no longer relevant to you and replace it with a new one. And this allows you to focus on different areas of your life and check what kind of goals and objectives, vision, and purpose and principles that you're trying to manage your task list. So the first step is adding things to your inbox. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and go to the inbox here, but you can also do all of this through the front page as well. So if I go to my inbox, then you can see that I've already put in several items here so that you can really see how to categorize these. I'm also going to add another item here so you can see exactly how to add items to the inbox. So let's say that I actually need to go buy some printer paper. So I'll put buy printer paper. Then I'll click out. So now you can see that I have added this one here using this button. You can also add new pages by clicking below here. So the first thing you'll want to do once you have enough things accumulated into your inbox is to decide where each one should go. So here you have several choices. Just like in the diagram, you can either assign a next action task, and you can also read here what each of these mean. So if there's an immediate next action, you can write it in here. If it takes more than one task, you'll want to assign it as a project. If it's something that you might want to check in later, you can add it to someday maybe or tickler. Then there's also an option to add it to your reference files. And then finally, if you don't think that you really need this, you can add it to trash. So let's go ahead and start organizing the inbox. So this can be done throughout the day or whenever you have time. It doesn't have to be that you have to categorize it immediately. This is just a place where you can sort of clear your mind by adding everything that might come up in your head. So the first thing is it would be nice to renovate my kitchen. So renovating a kitchen would be something that would require more than one task. And if this is something I really want to act on, I'm going to add it to project. The next thing is I got a notice about a block party coming up. This would be something that I'm not so sure I want to attend yet. So I'm going to add it to my someday maybe or tickler list. The next thing is I wonder how my neighbor is doing. So I think what I'll do is just call this neighbor. So I'm going to add a new task in my action list called call John and ask if he's doing well. And I'll add it here. The next thing I added here is a nearby restaurant's menu. So in this case, this is a file. So you can see here that you can also add files and media as well as a URL. So let's say that I have a menu that I found from the internet here as a URL, and then I'm going to add it to my reference file. The next thing I added is that I need to buy bread. This is something that would be a next action. So I'm going to go ahead and go here and type in go to grocery store to buy bread, and I'll add that as new. Then the next thing is that I need to book a meeting soon with a tax professional. So this one also is something that I just need a next action on, which is to book a meeting with tax professional. And I'll just add that in as a new one. And then another idea or thought I had is my car is breaking down a lot. And in this case, this would be something that's a project because it would take more than one task to complete, because first I need to think about who to contact, and then I need to actually make the contact. So I'm going to add it to project. Then I also put something that kind of just popped into my head that it would be nice to learn scuba diving. And this is obviously not something I want to do immediately, so I'm going to add it to my someday maybe. Next, I have a task here called buy printer paper. This one is very simple. I'm just going to add go to the store to buy paper. And now I've basically cleared my inbox. If you get confused where something went, you can also click view all to see where things went like this, as well as see the trash. So if something is something that you want to put into trash, for example, let's say that I want to learn a new language. And actually, I don't really need to bother with this right now. I'll just add it to trash. Then it's going to go into trash. So the next step in here, and probably a place where you're going to access things the most, is going to be your action task list. So I'm going to go into my action task list, and now I can see all of the tasks which I've added here. Go to the store to buy paper, book a meeting with a tax professional, go to grocery store to buy bread, call John and ask if he's doing well. So all of these I just added from my inbox, so it ends up here automatically. So if I open one of these, go to the store to buy paper, there are several things you can add here. So this is more than you probably need, but basically what you'll want to do is decide if this is something with a fixed date. In this case, you can go to the store anytime. So I'm not going to put a fixed date. Fixed date is more for things that have something that's time sensitive, like submitting a proposal at a certain deadline, or if you have an appointment at a certain time, or you've agreed to call someone at 3 p.m., then this is a fixed date. But going to the store to buy paper, this is not a fixed date. And this is something that requires a car. I'm not going to delegate it. The time required is maybe medium. Energy required is also medium. And priority is around medium as well. And if it is connected to project, you'll see it already here. And you can see that it came from this inbox item. So what I'm going to do now is to move this into my next action list, because it's not a 2-minute task. So this is an action that's going to take me more than 2 minutes. So I just put it here. The next one is book a meeting with tax professional. In this case, I want to ask my assistant to do this. So I'm actually going to put this into waiting. And I'll actually allocate this to my assistant. So what you can do is actually delegate it to a certain person, especially if you have shared this with someone who's using it with you. You can just click here and add that person in. So now you can see that I've delegated this task, and let's say that I want a due date for this. So I've assigned this to be done by Friday. I can add that in, and it's in waiting, so I can check on it when it becomes February 7th. The next task I have in here is go to the grocery store to buy bread. And this is just going to be something that I need to add to my next action. So I'm just going to move it here. And I can also fill it in. So context is car, and then I can just put medium for all of these and click here. Then I have call John and ask if he's doing well. If this is something I can do in 2 minutes, I can just move this in here and get it done immediately. If not, then I'll also put this as a next action. So this priority wise is not that high, but I want to be able to do this. So I'll just put something like this and phone. So now let's go over some of the tabs. So you can also view all of these in view all. So immediately when a task comes in, it's automatically going to be in uncategorized. And then after that, you can check each of your lists. So here are your next action lists: waiting, fixed date, done, and archive. And then you can also see things by due date. So if there is a due date, you'll see that this one has a due date, then it goes here. If it's a task with a fixed date, then it's going to go in the calendar, which you'll see soon. You can also see it by delegated, by context. So let's say that I want to see that these two activities I can do in the car, so I'll knock them out when I'm in the car. This one is with a phone, so if I have multiple phone tasks, I can do them all in one. You can also see things by time it requires, by energy, and then finally by priority. You don't have to use all of these tabs, but it could be useful if you have a lot of tasks here that you need to take care of. The other thing is that you can also add tasks directly into here if you're not using your inbox to add them in. If there's some task that you just know is already an action list, I would recommend just adding it straight here. So for example, let's say that you need to call the tax office and you know that you have to do this on a certain time. So let's say that you have to do it at 3 p.m. and then you click out, you have a fixed date. So this is something that you have to do at this time. And in that case, you can just leave it like that. And there is an automation that when you add this in, it's going to change the status. If it doesn't do that, you should make sure to change that status yourself. And you'll notice that it's in the fixed state here. You can also add what kind of context it is. In this case, it's a phone activity. And let's say that you have another task, which is to write a quick thank you note. And when you add that, you realize this is a 2-minute task, so you can just put it here. If you have a bunch of 2-minute tasks, you should just move it here, and then you can easily complete them. So next, let's take a look at our calendars. So if I click calendar, here you can see a fixed date of the week. So call the tasks office at 3 p.m. showed up here, which is from our action task list. You can also see it in a month view. There's also a due date. So the due dates are meant to be more fluid. So you can see that this is waiting and this is a due date. So that's the main difference between the fixed date and the due date, is that each task has 2 dates. One which is the fixed date that you have to do that task, and one which is a due date, which might be more flexible and that you could potentially move it. So it's not something that's immediately necessary. So there's also one more calendar here, which is called the tickler calendar. And this is going to show tickler items in here if you assign a date. We'll be going into the tickler later, so you'll see exactly what this means. But the 3 different types of calendar is the fixed date, the due date, which is both from action task list, and the tickler calendar, which is connected to the someday maybe and tickler list here. So be sure to rewatch this tutorial video if you get confused, and you can also add other calendars that you'd like to be checked at the same time here. So if you're also using Google Calendar, you can add a quick link here so that you know and remember to click that open and see it. The recommendation that I have also for calendars is to use Notion Calendar. So if you're in the fixed date here, you can actually open in Calendar and get the Notion Calendar app so that you can see your Google Calendar items alongside your action task list items all in one calendar. So I would highly recommend that system if you're interested in that. Next, let's go into projects. So the projects which we assigned from inbox are now here. So my car is breaking down a lot. It would be nice to renovate my kitchen. The first step is that it's going to end up with no tags at first in this top. So you can click one open. And since this is from the inbox, we can now rename this. So figure out car repair is the project name. You can add a start date here if you want. And this is for personal. And then what you can do is to start planning. So what kind of tasks you might need to do. So just to quickly write out the tasks, it would be to research car repair shops nearby, choose one and call them for an appointment. So it's basically 2 tasks. Once you're sure, what you can do is copy this one and you can add a new page to the action list and paste this in. And you can now strike through this one so you know that you've taken care of it. So I would recommend listing all the tasks you might need to do for the project, but not necessarily moving them all to the action list so that you don't clutter your action list. So now we see that we have the task and we have the action list here. So the same thing now you can do also with your kitchen renovation. I'll call this kitchen renovation. You can add a start date, you can add tags, so if this is personal, and then you can start project planning. Maybe your first task is to research local kitchen renovation companies, and then you can move this into your task list like this, and then click out. So now we have 2 in personal here. If you find that a project doesn't align with you anymore, you can always archive it at any time. So you can also add a cover photo here if you'd like to add more visual interest by clicking add cover, change cover, and then you can go to Unsplash for lots of stock images. So I'm gonna search for one here and I'll just choose one. So now if I click out, then I have a picture here. So now I can go to my Someday Maybe in Tickler and figure out what to do here. So again, everything I move from inbox ends up in no category, so I can actually categorize it. So the first one is I'd like to learn some new languages, but I'm not sure. If afterward I added this in, I'm actually not sure if I want to act on this, I can click the archive/decided. So this is when you've actually made any kind of action or decided on it. Then I have, it would be nice to learn scuba diving. This I would like to be reminded of a couple months from now when I have more time. So I'm going to put April 1st, categories, new skill, and I'll leave it like this. Then we have got a notice about block party coming up. This I need to decide, let's say by the 16th at the latest. So I have a tickler date here. Category is event. And now I have both here. So now if I go to the tickler calendar, you can see that I'm going to be reminded about this on Sunday here. And if you want to take it a step further with the reminder, you can also click remind and choose a reminder time here. Then I can go to view all active and I can see all my archived and I can see a complete view all here as well. So this is just meant to store anything that you might want to take action on in the future or add a reminder about. If you want to add new categories, you can just simply type things in here and add them in. So it's very easy to add new categories. Next, let's go to the reference section. If I go to the reference section, you can see that I've added the new nearby restaurants menu and I have the URL here already. I can click board view by category if I want to see the category, but this one has no category yet. So I'll want to actually open this up and choose a category for this. Since this is a list of menus that I have, I'm gonna store it in menus, so I have it here. If I go to the category, you can see that all menus are gonna show up here from now on. So it's just an easy way to keep a track of all of your reference files. Next, let's go to the review section. So there's 2 kinds of reviews, weekly reviews and then higher level reviews. So as I mentioned earlier in this video, there are different kinds of levels from the bottom to the top. So I would recommend doing weekly reviews and then sometimes when you feel like it, do high level reviews. And the order that the higher level reviews go is that it goes from areas of focus, goals and objective 1 to 2 years, vision 3 to 5 years, and then purpose and principles, which is basically about your whole entire life. So maybe the areas of focus and responsibility you might want to do every month, but the purpose and principles of life you could even do yearly. So for the weekly review, there's already one here that's incomplete that you can start by filling out. So here you can see step-by-step instructions. So first you can check and review your inbox. In this case, we have an inbox 0, but you can even add new things into the inbox, like remember to do high-level review. as one of your inbox items to manage later. You can check your active projects. So I have figure out car repair, kitchen renovation. If this is great, then you can leave it the way it is. If something does not really align with you anymore, you can also archive it. You can also add a new project here if you feel like it. Next, there's the check your someday maybe tickler list, any you want to take action. So you can see the items you have on your someday maybe and tickler list here that if you want, you can take action on. Step 2 is review your calendars. So be sure not to add anything through here. This is mainly just to check and see what you might have to do in the upcoming week. So this is something that you've added that is to call the tax office at 3 p.m. So you have to do it at this time. The next thing is to check if you have any additional apps or locations where you keep calendars. Be sure to check those too. So as I mentioned earlier, if you keep your calendar in Google Calendar, you'll want to check those calendars. So every calendar you can think of, make sure to check it during your weekly review. Then you can review your action list. So I would recommend checking the action list here, but this is just a view only to see what tasks need to be done. So I wouldn't really recommend adding new things here that much, but just to make sure to see what you have here. Then finally, we have review questions. What went well this week? What could have gone better? What did I learn? What needs to change? And do I need to do upper level review soon? So these are all just for your own review. Once you're done with your weekly review, you can just check the completed and it gets moved to here. If you want to automate this, you can also click these 3 dots here and set it to repeat every week so that you see a new one here. Then we have higher level review. So when you feel like doing a higher level review, you can always click this button. So if I click this one, then let's say that I want to start with my purpose and principles, which is the highest level that I can do. So if I do this one and I click purpose and principles, it's already going to populate it with the correct type, and it's going to add all of these prompts for you that you can fill in. As part of the process, you can also check your inbox and anything you might want to add here. You can check your projects, you can check your someday maybe tickler list, and then there's an open reflection. So now if I click out, you'll notice that this got added here. When you update a new higher level review, you'll want to archive your old one. So if I click here now, I've replaced that and it's here in the archive. So this way you can always see a visual of all of your higher level reviews and kind of check in and read on them if you need to. You can also click here and add a cover photo that kind of also acts as a mood photo. So let's say that I want to add a cloud picture here. I can add this to sort of demonstrate the upper level views. Now, if I go back to home, you'll notice that all of the higher level reviews are showing up on the left-hand side. So this is why it's kind of like also your mood photos. So it's really nice to add cover photos here. You'll notice that the fixed date action task has been updated here as well, so you can see it here. And since we entered the weekly review, they're all incomplete, but you see that it's empty. So when you want to add a new one, you can either click here or you can set it up in an automation. So now we see here, remember to do high level review. If I feel like emptying my inbox, my next action is do a higher level review. And I can add that to my task list. And I've cleared my inbox. So this is sort of the process that you can use in order to implement this method. If you get confused, I really recommend going to the Start Here page, follow the tutorial, and check this diagram if you're confused there, as well as this kind of hierarchy level that you can see for your review list. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in this template or book, be sure to check the links in the description. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I hope to see you all in the next video.